Day 93, 1 Kings 4 through 7. Solomon built the temple. 4. Solomon's officials and prosperous reign. 5. Solomon prepares to build the temple. 6. Solomon built the temple. The interior furnishing of the temple. 7. Solomon's palace. Human's task. The 2 bronze columns. The bronze tank. The bronze cart. Summary list of temple furnishings. Point to ponder. Christ is true temple. John chapter 2 verse 21. God himself prepared Jesus, his one and only Son. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 4 and Hebrew chapter 10 verse 5. In Christ Jesus, all God's spiritual children meet and through him have access to God.
Chapter 4. King Solomon was king over all Israel. These were the princes whom he had: Azariah, the son of Zadok the priest; Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha scribes; Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud the recorder; and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, over the host; and Zadok and Abiathar were priests; and Azariah the son of Nathan was over the officers; and Zabud the son of Nathan was chief minister and the king's friend; and Ahishar was over the household; and Adoniram the son of Abda was over the men subject to forced labor. Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, who provided food for the king and his household. Each man had to make provision for a month in the year. These are their names: Ben-Hur, in the hill country of Ephraim; Ben-Deker in Makaz, and in Shalbim, and Beth-Shemesh, and Elon Beth-Hanan; Ben-Hesed in Araboth; to him belonged Soko, and all the land of Hepher; Ben-Abinadab, in all the height of Dor; he had Taphath, the daughter of Solomon, as wife; Baana, the son of Ahilud, in Taanach, and Megiddo, and all Beth-Shean which is beside Zarethan, beneath Jezreel, from Beth-Shean to Abel-Meholah, as far as beyond Jokmeam; Ben-Geber, in Ramoth-Gilead; to him belonged the towns of Jair, the sons of Manasseh, which are in Gilead; even to him belonged the region of Argob, which is in Bashan, 60 great cities with walls and brazen bars; Ahinadab, the son of Edo, in Mahanaim; Ahamaz, in Naphtali; he also took Basemath, the daughter of Solomon, as a wife; Baana, the son of Hushai, in Asher, and Baaloth; Jehoshaphat, the son of Paruah, in Issachar; Shimei, the son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, the son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and of Og, king of Bashan, and he was the only officer who was in the land. Judah and Israel were many as the sand which is by the sea in number, eating and drinking, and making merry. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines, and to the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. Solomon's provision for one day was 30 measures of fine flour, and 60 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, and 20 oxen out of the pastures, and 100 sheep, besides harts and gazelles and roebucks and fattened fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tiphsah even to Gaza, over all the kings on this side of the river, and he had peace on all sides round about him. Judah and Israel lived safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. Those officers provided food for King Solomon, and for all who came to King Solomon's table, every man in his month. They let nothing be lacking. Barley also and straw for the horses, and swift steeds they brought to the place where their officers were, every man according to his charge. God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding in great measure, and very great understanding, even as the sand that is on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east, and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Haman, and Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all the nations round about. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even to the hyssop that springs out of the wall. He spoke also of animals, and of birds, and of creeping things, and of fish. There came of all peoples to hear the wisdom of Solomon from all the kings of the earth, who had heard of his wisdom. Chapter 5. Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants to Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in the place of his father, for Hiram was ever a lover of David. Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, You know how that David my father could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God, for the wars which were about him on every side, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor evil occurrence. Behold, I purpose to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spoke to David my father, saying, Your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, he shall build the house for my name. Now therefore command that they cut me cedar trees out of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with your servants, and I will give you hire for your servants according to all you shall say, for you know there is not among us any who knows how to cut timber like the Sidonians. It happened, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, who has given to David a wise son over this great people. Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, I have heard the message which you have sent to me. I will do all your desire concerning timbers of cedar and concerning timbers of fir. My servants shall bring them down from Lebanon to the sea, and I will make them into rafts to go by sea to the place that you shall appoint me, and will cause them to be broken up there. And you shall receive them, and you shall accomplish my desire in giving food for my household. So Hiram gave Solomon timbers of cedar and timbers of fir according to all his desire. Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food for his household, and 20 measures of pure oil. This is what Solomon gave to Hiram year by year. The Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he promised him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two made a league together. King Solomon raised a levy out of all Israel, and the levy was 30,000 men. He sent them to Lebanon, 10,000 a month at a time. A month they were in Lebanon, and 2 months at home. Adoniram was over the men subject to forced labor. Solomon had 70,000 who bore burdens, and 80,000 who were stone cutters in the mountains, besides Solomon's chief officers who were over the work, 3,300, who bore rule over the people who labored in the work. The king commanded, and they hewed out great and costly stones, to lay the foundation of the house with work stone. Solomon's builders, and Hiram's builders, and the Gebalites did fashion them, and prepare the timber and the stones to build the house. Chapter 6. It happened in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Zib, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. The house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length of it was 60 cubits, and the breadth of it 20 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. The porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length of it, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth of it before the house. For the house he made windows of fixed lattice work. Against the wall of the house he built stories round about, against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the oracle, and he made side chambers round it. The nethermost story was 5 cubits broad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For on the outside he made offsets in the wall of the house round about, that the beams should not have hold in the walls of the house. The house, when it was in building, was built of stone made ready at the quarry, and there was neither hammer, nor axe, nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was being built. The door for the middle side chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up by winding stairs into the middle story, and out of the middle into the third. So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and planks of cedar. He built the stories against all the house, each 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timbers of cedar. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, Concerning this house which you are building, if you will walk in my statutes, and execute my ordinances, and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then I will establish my word with you which I spoke to David your father. I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel. So Solomon built the house and finished it. He built the walls of the house within with boards of cedar, from the floor of the house to the walls of the ceiling. He covered them on the inside with wood, and he covered the floor of the house with boards of fir. He built 20 cubits on the back part of the house with boards of cedar from the floor to the walls of the ceiling. He built them for it within for an oracle, even for the most holy place. The house, that is, the temple before the oracle, was 40 cubits long. There was cedar on the house within, carved with buds and open flowers. All was cedar. There was no stone seen. He prepared an oracle in the midst of the house within, to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Within the oracle was a space of 20 cubits in length, and 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in the height of it, and he overlaid it with pure gold, and he covered the altar with cedar. So Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold, and he drew chains of gold across before the oracle, and he overlaid it with gold. The whole house he overlaid with gold, until all the house was finished. Also the whole altar that belonged to the oracle he overlaid with gold. In the oracle he made 2 cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. From the uttermost part of the one wing to the uttermost part of the other were 10 cubits. The other cherub was 10 cubits. Both of the cherubim were of the same measure and form. The height of the one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was it of the other cherub. He set the cherubim within the inner house, and the wings of the cherubim were stretched forth, so that the wing of the one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another in the middle of the house. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. He carved all the walls of the house round about with carved figures of cherubim, and palm trees, and open flowers inside and outside. The floor of the house he overlaid with gold inside and outside. For the entrance of the oracle he made the doors of olive wood. The lintel and doorpost were a 5th part of the wall. So he made 2 doors of olive wood, and he carved on them carvings of cherubim, and palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid them with gold, and he spread the gold on the cherubim and on the palm trees. So he also made for the entrance of the temple doorpost of olive wood, out of a 4th part of the wall, and 2 doors of fir wood. The 2 leaves of the one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding. He carved on them cherubim and palm trees and open flowers, and he overlaid them with gold fitted on the engraved work. He built the inner court with 3 courses of hewn stone, and a course of cedar beams. In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid, in the month of Ziv. In the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts of it, according to all the fashion of it. So he was 7 years in building it. Chapter 7. Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. For he built the house of the forest of Lebanon, and the length of it was 100 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits, on 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams on the pillars. It was covered with cedar above the 45 beams that were on the pillars, 15 in a row. There were beams in 3 rows, and a window was set over against window in 3 ranks. All the doors and posts were made square with beams, and windows were over against windows in 3 ranks. He made the porch of pillars. The length of it was 50 cubits, and the breadth of it 30 cubits, and a porch before them, and pillars, and a threshold before them. He made the porch of the throne where he was to judge, even the porch of judgment, and it was covered with cedar from floor to floor. His house where he was to dwell, the other court within the porch, was of the same work. He made also a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom Solomon had taken as a wife, like this porch. All of these were of costly stone, even of hewn stone, according to measure, sawed with saws inside and outside, even from the foundation to the coping, and so on the outside to the great court. The foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. Above were costly stones, even hewn stone, according to measure, and cedar wood. The great court round about had 3 courses of hewn stone, and a course of cedar beams, like as the inner court of the house of the Lord, and the porch of the house. King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. He was the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and skill, to work all works in brass. He came to King Solomon and performed all his work, for he fashioned the 2 pillars of brass 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits compassed either of them about. He made 2 capitals of molten brass to set on the tops of the pillars. The height of the one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. There were nets of checkerwork and wreaths of chainwork for the capitals which were on top of the pillars, 7 for the one capital, and 7 for the other capital. So he made the pillars, and there were 2 rows round about on the one network, to cover the capitals that were on the top of the pillars, and so he did for the other capital. The capitals that were on the top of the pillars in the porch were of lily work, 4 cubits. There were capitals above also on the 2 pillars, close by the belly which was beside the network, and the pomegranates were 200, in rows round about on the other capital. He set up the pillars at the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and called the name of it Jachin, and he set up the left pillar, and called the name of it Boaz. On the top of the pillars was lily work, so was the work of the pillars finished. He made the molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in form, and the height of it was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits compassed it round about. Under the brim of it round about there were buds which did compass it for 10 cubits, compassing the sea round about. The buds were in 2 rows, cast when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east, and the sea was set on them above, and all their hinder parts were inward. It was a handbreadth thick, and the brim of it was worked like the brim of a cup, like the flower of a lily. It held 2,000 baths. He made the 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, and 3 cubits the height of it. The work of the bases was on this manner. They had panels, and there were panels between the ledges, and on the panels that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubim. And on the ledges there was a pedestal above, and beneath the lions and oxen were wreaths of hanging work. Every base had 4 brazen wheels and axles of brass, and the 4 feet of it had supports. Beneath the basin were the supports molten, with wreaths at the side of each. The mouth of it within the capital and above was a cubit, and the mouth of it was round after the work of a pedestal, a cubit and a half. And also on the mouth of it were engravings, and their panels were 4 square, not round. The 4 wheels were underneath the panels, and the axle of the wheels were in the base, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half. The work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Their axles and their rims and their spokes and their naves were all molten brass. There were 4 supports at the 4 corners of each base. The supports of it were the base itself. In the top of the base was there a round compass half a cubit high, and on the top of the base the stays of it and the panels of it were of the same. On the plate of the stays and on the panels he engraved cherubims, lions, and palm trees, according to the space of each, with wreaths round about. After this manner he made the 10 bases. All of them had 1 casting, 1 measure, and 1 form. He made also 10 basins of brass. 1 basin contained 40 baths, and every basin was 4 cubits, and on every one of the 10 bases 1 basin. He set the bases, 5 on the right side of the house, and 5 on the left side of the house, and he set the sea on the right side of the house eastward toward the south. Hiram made the bases, and the shovels, and the basins. So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he worked for King Solomon in the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars, and the 2 bowls of the capitals that were there on top of the pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the top of the pillars, and the 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the pillars, and the 10 bases, and the 10 basins on the bases, and the 1 sea, and the 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, even all these vessels which Hiram made for King Solomon in the house of the Lord were of burnished brass. In the plain of the Jordan did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zerathon. Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because they were exceedingly many. The weight of the brass could not be found out. Solomon made all the vessels that were in the house of the Lord, the golden altar, and the table whereupon the showbread was of gold, and the lampstands, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left before the oracle, of pure gold, and the flowers and the lamps and the tongs of gold, and the cups and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the firepans of pure gold, and the hinges, both for the doors of the inner house, the most holy place, and for the doors of the house, even of the temple, of gold. Thus all the work that King Solomon worked in the house of the Lord was finished. Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels, and put them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord.